Hey, David. How's it going, man? Let's take a look over your shot. Let's watch what we've got so far. And we can dig into the notes. Nice and fun. Nice and snappy. I like that for sure. Cool. So let's dig into the notes. See what we can improve. So some posing things, but the first thing I want to talk about is the start. Just kind of, to me, feels a bit sudden. Like we're kind of starting in like a falling pose here. I would almost liked, I think you had an older version where either they came in from here and then they bounced screen right, screen left, screen right again, or they came in from here, bounced across, you know. I think having extra time at the start and having this jump in from behind the horizon line, so they appear from behind the horizon line, you know, you have the head come up and you go to a cool pose and you land, means that you could have a bit more of a interesting rhythm, boom, 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 instead of just having 3 moves that you can have an interesting rhythm with. It becomes 4, and then you can play with that and mix it up a little bit. Like I could see maybe this could be a relatively fast jump, like, so it's like faster jump, a slow jump, a fast jump, or something. So you get like a break in rhythm from fast to slow. You have slow to fast here, slow, fast, fast. But it'd be cool if you had like fast jump in, like boom, 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 boom. So you have like a break in the rhythm a little bit. And I think it would be nice to flesh that out a little bit more and have that at the start. That's kind of a bigger picture thing. Everything else is going to be more technical animation notes because I think that's everything else is working idea wise. So let's just push some animation things. So I think a lot of the stuff, a lot of the notes here is going to be about clarity of posing. So I think here you're very even. It feels like not the strongest pose, so I think you can push it. I think you can have a clearer directionality from where you've come from, depending on if you're coming in this way or this way. If you're coming in this way, then I would continue within this arc, you know. Maybe this arm could even be a little bit further back and follow that arc that you've just come from. And I think having clarity of the pieces and some asymmetry between the limbs, like this drawing, would be stronger. You also have this reverse spine shape in here, which then when you come down into here, I think you can push to get a reversal, all right? Which is always good to get in there. Cool, so let's move on to this pose. So we got this pose here, and I think it's very flat onto camera, and because of that, it's hard to kind of read it. I think if you went more 3/4 with the pose, so that you could see that arc in the back, and that you'd have that clarity, that things would be a bit clearer, and I think it would be a bit stronger to have that. So I would go for a pose like this, like the drawing. Cool. So the next thing is your push-off pose here. So the push-off is going straight up in your current version, but you're going to the right here and doing this kind of arc. So I've drawn this a bit exaggerated, but maybe if there's a way of having it show where we're going to a little bit more, I think it's fine that you're kind of leading with the back because you're unraveling and doing that flip, which is cool. But I think just make sure that the trajectory makes sense and that you're going to the off to the screen right a little bit, because all of your force is generated on up to this frame through your legs, and from this point on, it's all inertia. There's no control that you have other than rotation over your body, because you're in midair, right? You put the force down your feet. The last frame that you can show that there's force happening is the push-off pose. So this is the push-off pose. Which also most of the time is the most stretched. So the push-off and the contact poses during jumps are the most stretched poses, because this is where you got the most force, and then you kind of calm down, and then you get the most force again as you come down. So push-off equals stretch. Right? Now, as I've just kind of alluded to, you have this left to right movement through here, and I think my big issue with it is that your spacing isn't consistent throughout. So from this frame, as we just talked about, after the push-off, once the feet are off the ground, you are no longer in control of your weight's position in space. It becomes linear almost. You are linearly moving, your inertia is moving through space until you contact again and land. So I can feel at this point, you kind of get stuck in left to right around here. So you get stuck around here, and then it speeds up again around here. So that I can tell, if I look at your graph, which we're going to do in a minute, that things are going to get bumpy, right? There's going to be some breaks in it that aren't completely working. So we'll look at the graph and I'll explain that in a minute as well. During the flip, I think it's mostly cool. I think some posing stuff at the end here. I think this pose could be a bit, the clarity of it could be a bit stronger. And something to think about with posing a lot is that you have one simple side. So here you have a simple side which has a clear flowing line which connects the body. Like maybe this character design has a bit of hip, and this goes in, like that's fine. But like in general, it's a much simpler side, and you keep this kind of within the arc that we're traveling in. We're traveling in this arc. You keep the kind of main body within this arc. So you have that simple side and you have a complex side. So the complex side means that just graphically, there's more lines, right? It takes more lines here to read what's happening, whereas this is one clean, simple line. Like, yeah, there's a little bit of this, but like in general, you can kind of look over it and the general flow is going like this. Whereas there's like bigger, like maybe you could do the general flow in like 4 lines or something, 5 lines. So it's a simple side and a complex side. And I think that's going to help your posing here. So yeah, straight arms, which flow into the body, shows the directionality that we've come from. Simpler side. Maybe, you know, you want to leave with the toe pointing down, that's up to you. And then you have your complex side with this leg, right, coming up. It's an idea of it. I'll delete this one because it's going to be confusing with the spacing. Cool. So this is your contact pose. So with the contact, same as what we just talked about. The push off and the contact are going to be your most stretched out poses. And after this point, after the contact, your body can start to kind of find its eases and ease into the final position, overshoot, all of that kind of stuff, because the legs start to take the weight again. But from this point, this is when you should have the most stretched pose. So it's the most stretched, right? And then, you know, you could have your down around here, maybe even overshoot the down a tiny bit, or use the overshoot of the down to bounce out into your next move, which could be cool. A little bit of posing here. I think we can get a little bit of clarity on some of these pieces. I see you have this cloth. Hopefully you can pose that. So if we compare, I think I'm trying to keep the knee and the elbow in their own silhouette space so they're not kind of tangenting and lining up perfectly. So that this line and this change of direction is within that knee, and that knee is outside of this line, right? At the moment, it kind of gets a little bit muddled with all your lines, like this line and this line. It's kind of soft and lacks some clarity. I think a little bit more angular, a little bit stronger in there is going to help. Also, if you can see a bit of the spine, at the moment, you can't really see the spine. You just see some tits, right? And you kind of miss the spine. Maybe if they were a bit more, if you get a bit more counter rotation in there, so you can see that spine shape clearly bending. And maybe even you get the head out of the silhouette a little bit and the ears out of the silhouette a little bit. That's kind of what I've tried to do in the drawing. Hopefully that's clear. And this could be the main pose you're kind of going into. As we talked about, so we're going to go from a stretch shape. So I'll just draw it really simply here. Stretch shape. We go into our down. So I'll turn on the ghosting, which is our compressed shape. So imagine you're fitting the silhouette within these parts, right? So even though this cube is kind of the same volume overall, like we're maintaining volume as this squishes down, this squishes out in both sides, right? And as this is up, this is in, right? And then when you do your push off here, we're going back into a stretched again, right? So you can kind of use that as the overshoot, and this is the push off pose. So again, push off pose, this is going to be the most stretched that we're going to be in the body. I'll talk about this fun smear idea I have in a second. So again, I think your push off here, let's look at this. You don't really have a straight line in the body here. And I think, again, it's kind of simple and complex once again. Like we have our complex side with all of this, lots of detail in the silhouette, complex. And then this one, we're doing our best to keep it as simple as possible. Like, yeah, we have this arm. Maybe it's like 3 lines, right? But ideally, that would flow in a general direction of movement is the clear, simple, you know, simple and complex once again. I think that's going to help the clarity of this push-off pose. I think that's a little bit lacking right now. So let's try and clean that up. Like angles like that knee. I can't really hold on this frame, but angles, I can do it with the laser pointer. Angles like this, no, I can't. Angles like this knee, simplifying that, getting the clarity, and the directionality to be really clear. Cool, so let's look at, you have a 1 frame in the middle here that you're kind of switching the body. I almost think what would be really cool is if you made a smear shape. So I would literally just make some planes, or you could do this in 2D with some jagged edges. It's something they do in anime. And we're talking about anime. And you could have, you know, it's black with red bits in it. So it would be mostly black with our, you know, you could add like a red stripe and some red eerie bits, whatever you wanted to this, just a shape, just like for clarity. And if you, once that plays, it reads like, because it's one frame, it reads just like the motion of the body is snapping through. If I turn on history, this is something you might do in 2D. Look, I think you should try out in 3D. It just reads as like a simple shape that strobes across. Like it fits. The important bit with it, and let me make this clear because this is the important part with this, is that it's within, it's messy. That it's within this arc, right? So let me get the laser pointer out. It's within this arc between the heads. It's within this arc between the bodies, right? It's a tube that it's getting sucked into. The body's getting sucked into. It's getting elongated and thinned. So it's the same thing again. So when it gets longer, right? When you stretch it this way, it has to compress in this way to maintain the volume, right? That's the idea with the shape language, right? So we're going from push off or whatever, gets longer and thinner, comes back to, right? So you get this kind of thing in the overall like silhouette. That's the idea. Cool. And then you can drag your arm within that arc. As you come out of that arc, you know, you continue this arm in this arc. So I drew that wrong, actually. That could continue within kind of the arc that you've come from. So you've got something dragging behind into the arc that we're kind of showing ourselves going through. Cool. Let's turn off ghosting. Yeah, this pose, I think, yeah, just a little bit of clarity. The spine, to me, it's getting a little bit twisted. I can't stop on it very well, but it's getting a little bit twisted and broken. So just clarifying the spine so it's a clean spine shape. You know, I think if you're a bit more upright, you'd have your boobs here or whatever, in your body, and this stuff could flow in quite nicely. Try and get some clear silhouettes with it, clear leg contact point. Again, I think that's going to help. Here, a little bit of clarity in the posing. I think this posing is mostly good. I think maybe if you get the head a little bit out in the silhouette so that the ears are within the silhouette of the body here. Maybe a little bit more angular on the legs because at the moment it kind of gets lost a little bit. A little bit more clarity on the spine so we're not bent over as much. I think could help. And this leg, I think definitely this back leg can come out more so that we see that and we have this negative space around the foot as well, like it's touching the hand at the moment. These two shouldn't overlap. There should be a clear amount of negative space between all of these parts, right? So this should have its own clear amount of negative space and clear silhouette, which is going to help. This should have all of its own clear silhouette. This can break the silhouette, the head, because it's important. So just thinking about those negative spaces so that there's clarity in your posing. Cool. So your head spacing here, I don't think is very progressive. It feels a bit even. If I frame through here, like it gets stuck on this frame and then it just pops forward. So just watch out for that. The head spacing needs to progress. Head forward and then into our nice fun pose here. Cool. So you get into this pose. I wonder if you could get the elbow a bit clearer. That's why I've drawn this out. Might be difficult. Play around with it. It is working already, so I'm hesitant about that note a little bit. Maybe the elbow would be more back this way and you have the shoulder and then the arm comes this way or something. Play around with it. Oh shit, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it works. Have a go. Cool, so my main thing on the ending here, I think it's mostly working. However, if you track these fingers in screen space, like this moved like this much in screen space, and then the next frame, it just doesn't move at all. It kind of gets a bit muddled. And I think the same thing is happening with the palm, especially if you look at the palm line, it's moving a huge amount across these two frames. It's moving all of this distance, and then suddenly it's moving like a small amount of distance. So if you continue that, maybe just track the palm and make sure that continues through. So that spacing continues, maybe even a little bit bigger. Maybe it could be here just for one more frame. And then the next frame could just be completely black and covered. And I think that will make this read a little bit clearer, just a small spacing thing. Cool. So I'm going to jump into Maya and I'm going to show you what I mean about the inertia stuff, because I think that's the most important. And then that should be it. Whoops. Go to Firefox. Claw intro 12. This should be the one. 1 second. I should have had this pre-opened. That's my bad. I know I didn't have the textures with your rig here. Didn't have the textures with it. I think that must be with the rig scene. Just going to turn on Just polygons. Maybe turn off textures so there's some clarity between the background. I'm going to turn on the film gate here. And I like to work where I can see the edge of the camera, personally. So I turn on display options, make this a bit more black so I know what the edge is, and I up the overscan so I can see the edges. So here I can see a little bit of the edge. That's what I like to see. I don't have a pick or anything for this character, so I'm just going to grab a control. So imagine, hopefully, cool. Yeah, so you've moved everything into the space, the correct space when you're in the air, which is going to make this super easy. So from the point of push off, again, I want you to change this pose. I think this can be clearer. Also, I don't think you should be working in minus frames. That's going to get messy. Just move everything up. 1 second, Animbot's loading because I just used an Animbot hotkey. Cool, here you go. So let's look at both the up and down. The inertia is going to be changing. Like this up and down is going to be clear, but the side to side, as we talked about, as soon as we push off, yeah, I can see that this is pretty messy. So let's have a look at these curves. As soon as we push off until we contact, so it's this frame 0, we are in the air. So from 0 onwards till this frame, the contact 19. From 0 to 19, I'm just going to grab the Z and X. I'm just going to delete it, to be honest. So I deleted that through the middle, and now that should probably just clean up your spacing. I mean, the linear tangent might be better here for now. So let's grab these 2 keys, chuck this in a linear tangent. And now, yeah, so now the spacing is going to be progressive from left to right, and the momentum is going to make a bit more sense. Still is a bit weird because she's pushing off completely upwards and not to the side, and then is going to the side. So that again is something we need fixing from our posing side point of view. But that's what I'd look at. So when it's in the air, there's inertia side to side, and then the up and down is controlled by this guy. Let's check your live rotation axis. Yep. So if you ever want to see, much like how there's a gimbal mode, which it looks like you're using, which is great. Much like how there's a gimbal mode to see which axis are doing which in here. If you hold down W, go to axis, live rotation axis. This is actually what is happening in the graph editor. So this is only affecting one axis. This is the only one moving. So that's what I use a lot of the time. So yeah, I can see your spacing here could be cleaned up a little bit in the graph. But I know this is like a blocking pass, so this is getting a little bit more polishy. So something I like to do, I want to keep the general feel of your curve here. I'm just going to snap buffer, and then I'm going to simplify, delete a bunch of keys. Let's maybe delete this guy, delete these 2. Cool. And I want to keep the general energy that you had in your curve from before. Maybe I'll have the apex of frame earlier here and have this slightly go down. Have this have a bit more hang time. So it's just a little bit cleaner of a curve. And that will clean that spacing up a little bit before you land. But hopefully that inertia point makes sense to you. So after the feet leave the floor, all your momentum is decided. So you're literally just going left to right. There is nothing else to it. Cool. And then the shape thing. So I would literally just for one frame. I mean, if you're going to add motion blur and stuff, maybe you could get the rig to contort into that simple shape. But honestly, I would just create some planes, add some texture to it, add some some jaggedness to it, and try and create a simple shape, like we talked about with this, and that'll help you for sure. Cool. I'm not sure if there's much else I need to demo in Maya. I think hopefully all of those notes are clear. So pre-planned the notes, showed you the notes. Hopefully all of that's clear. But of course, feel free to ask me. You know, hit me a DM if anything's not clear. I'll send you the sync sketch link, and I'll send you the recording, which will be on YouTube. And yeah, best of luck with the shot, man. I think it's a fun one. I wonder, one thing about the ending, you could always look at some anime. There's not much lead and follow. Maybe there's an opportunity, and this is an idea. I would look at some One Punch Man. I would look at some other things. Maybe there's an opportunity to have a frame of lead with the twist of the body leads, then the hand starts to ease out as this is still leading, and then you get the slash. At the moment, the hand is kind of, it all goes at once. So maybe if the frame before, you get a little bit of lead with the body leads off, it leaves the hand more, maybe it gets a little bit bigger in frame. This drawing is not very clear, but the body could lead off. Have your clear legs, have that all in clear silhouette. So this could lead, this could drag, lead, drag, and then it comes through. So not the most thought out note, but hopefully the idea is there. I feel like with One Punch Man and stuff, when you look at the intro, you get the body goes past, it leaves the fist in frame, and then the fist comes through. And I feel like you could do something similar with the timing here, so it isn't all happening at once. So yeah, find some reference for that. I think, I can have a look and see if I can find some as well. But I think that would help the clarity of that moment for sure. Anyway, cool. Good luck with it. I'm looking forward to see how it comes along. And yeah, man, speak soon. Thanks.